Hello lovely people, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ade from Style by Binta. So today I'm going to be recreating this black design on this white senator top, and it's going to be as beautiful as you can see. So the first thing I'd like you to do for me, if you're interested in content like this and you're coming across my video for the first time, is to please like this video, subscribe to my channel, turn on your notification button so as for you to get notified when I upload new videos. So the first thing I did was to lay the front piece where the design is going to be done. So as you can see, I had already pressed the center down to create this line that is going to be guiding me to evenly divide my measurements to both sides. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to measure 3¼ of an inch on both sides. So starting from this center line, I'm going to be measuring 3¼ of an inch. So I measured it at intervals. So to determine where this center bust shape is going to start from, I'm going to place the tape at the neckline and I'm going to measure 8 inches downwards. So the box at the center is going to be starting from this 8 inches. So I measured it at the other side. So I'm going to be ruling a straight line across it. So the next thing I did was to measure the 3¼ of an inch on the other side of the front piece, just as you can see. So I'm going to be marking this 3¼ of an inch at intervals to the down part as well. So the next thing I did was to rule a straight line to connect the points. So to determine the length of this box shape at this center, I place the tape at this chest line and I'm going to be coming down by 9.5 inches. Just as you can see, I made a point there at the center itself. So at the edge where the 3.5 inches is, I'm going to be measuring 8¼ of an inch at that edge. So the edge is going to be shorter in length to the center. So this is going to create a sort of V shape at that angle. So the next thing I did was to connect the 8¼ of an inch to the 9.5 inches. So it's going to be making a V shape at that part. So this is like the foundation of the design. So I'm going to be creating the other design around this base. So the next thing I did was to measure 1/4 of an inch all around this box. So it's going to be the spacing between each design. So I went ahead and I measured the 1/4 of an inch all around, and I'm going to be ruling a straight line to connect it together. So the next thing I did was to mark 1.5 inches starting from this 1/4 of an inch that I had marked. So I went ahead and I measured 1.5 inches, which is 1½ inches all around again. So this is going to be where the next black design is going to be into. At the angles, I had to add 1/8 of an inch to 1.5 inches so as for it to balance. The angle is seeming to need more than to make it balance. So I don't know if you get what I'm saying, but when you are doing your own, you will understand better. So I went ahead and I ruled a straight line across the points created, and I have this as the result. And this is what I have. So the next thing I did was to mark 1/4 inch again all around, which is going to be the white that will be showing in between the design. So I went ahead and I marked the 1/4 inch again all around. Then I'm going to be connecting my points together. And this is what I have. So the next thing I did was to repeat the same process for this last design. So I'm going to be marking 1.5 inches all around. So at the sharp angles, I'm going to be adding 1/8 inch to it. 1/8 inch is the first point before 1/4 inch that we have on the regular tape. I went ahead and I marked 1.5 all around. Then I'm going to be ruling a straight line across. So as you can see, I have something similar to what the design should look like. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to cut the fabric that I'm going to be working with, which is the black design. So I'm going to be measuring what I have at the center to determine what I'm going to be working with. So the width of what I'm working with here is 6.5, because I made 3/4 inch on both edge. 3/4 inch in two places is going to give me 6.5. So the length I'm working with is 9.5. So I'm going to be cutting out the length of 9.5 by the width of 6.5 on a fusible interface, which is also known as a stle. This is what I have. So I'm going to be placing it on the fabric, ensuring that I have the excess of at least 1 inch at the edges. So this is what I have after cutting it out. So this is what I have after pressing the excess at the edges down. This is how it looks. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to go to the sewing table. So I'm going to be placing it where it should be, at the center of the fabric itself. So for the part where I measured 1.5 inches on the white fabric itself, I'm going to be needing about double of that for the design itself. So I went ahead and I cut out this piece. I measured 3.5 here, but I will eventually reduce it to 2.5 because 3.5 is a lot, and the less the excess, the easier the design. So I went ahead and I cut this piece. So the next thing I did was to cut a fusible interface for this 1.5 inches replacement too. Then I went ahead and I gave it a good press, and this is what I have. So the next thing I did was to reduce it. So I previously had 3.5 inches, so I reduced it to 2.5 inches because what I actually needed is 1.5 inches. So I folded half inches at both edge, and this is what I have. So you should be left with the 1.5 inches after folding at the edges. I'm not working with this, I'm only illustrating with this. So this is what I'm working with. It is way longer than this. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to use a hemi gum to press it down all around so as to keep it stable. So this is my result. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to stitch around the edges. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to determine where the opening that will show the white background on the design is going to be. So the next thing I did was to leave the 1/4 inch that immediately followed this black that I had already placed. So the immediate line is going to be the startup line for the next design. So I simply went ahead and traced this center line that I had ironed on the fabric, and I'm going to be measuring 1 inches to one side and 1 inches to the other side. So the opening at this down part is going to be with the spacing of 1 inch at both sides. So in total it's going to be 2 inches. The next thing I did was to connect the points just as you can see, and I repeated the same process for the other side. So here I'm showing you that if you measured 1 inches on the upper part, when you are measuring for the down parts, because of the V shape at the down parts, you have to add 1/8 inch. So it will be 1/8 that you are going to be marking at the down part. It has to be more than the upper one if you are going to have the exact shape in the initial design. So the next thing I did was to connect the points together just as I said. So to determine where the design is going to be at the other side as well, I'm going to measure this black center. So I'm going to hold the tape from one edge to where the measurement stops, and whatever I have as my center is what I'm going to be marking. So here I have 8¾ so I mark the center. So it is this center I'm going to be tracing sideways to the 1.5 inch. I'm going to be extending the mark to the 1.5 inches at the other side. So I went ahead and I make a point at the 1.5 inches as well. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to measure 1 inch upwards and 1 inch downwards. So this is the second opening, while the third opening is going to be at the center front itself. So the center front line, I can still see it vividly, but I don't know if you can see it. So I'm going to be following the center front line create. So I'm going to be measuring 1 inch to both sides as well. So I went ahead and I ruled a straight line across it, just as you can see. So I rule a straight line across the one at the sides as well. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to take the cutout and I'm going to be placing it on it. So I'm going to be starting from the 1 inches that I came down at the side. So in order for me to have full control of the fabric while stitching, I have to turn around the fabric so that the bulky side is going to be laying flat to the table, while the side where there is lesser fabric is going to be in between this meshing, just as you can see. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to insert this cutout on the 1.5 inches that marked on the fabric itself. So I went ahead and I folded in the edges, just as you can see, and I'm going to be placing it straight on the fabric. So I'm going to place it on the 1.5 inches, leaving the spacing of the 1/4 inch. I am already leaving out 1 inches from this side, so I went ahead and I stitch it down. So I'm going to be stitching from one edge, the outer edge. Ensure that every excess at the edge of your fabric is pushed inside very well, so as for you to have a neat result. So the next thing I did was to stitch it down. So when I'm about 2.5 inches away to the next angle where I'm going to be turning, I ensure that the needle is inside of the fabric. Then I'm going to be tracing out the sharp angles that I have at the edge. So I make a point with my chalk on the black fabric. So at the outer edge, I'm going to be making a turn like this to fit into the shape. Then I'm going to be having this excess that is like forming a dart on the outside like this. Then I'm going to be pleating it inside and ensuring that the edge meets with the other chalked part that is seen on the outside like that. So I'm going to be aligning it together just as you can see. So I ensure that at the outer angle I am firmly holding that angle down. So that angle there, the pleat is not going to be getting there, but the turning is going to be happening there as well. So this is how it looks. So I'm simply going to continue with my stitching. So the next thing I did was to turn the fabric around, and I'm going to continue with the stitching. So as soon as I got close to the next line where the break of the design is going to be, I am going to be chalking where the line is on the black piece itself. Then I'm going to be adding ½ inch for seam allowance on it to it as well. So this is what I have. So the next thing I did was cut it out. So I'm going to be folding the edge inwards. So the next thing I did was to continue the stitching. So I ensured that the edges are tucked in well. So when I got to the end of the design, I simply ensure that the needle is still stuck in the fabric. Then I made a turnaround. Then I'm going to continue stitching to the other end, after which I'm going to do the same thing. Ensure that your needle is still in the fabric, then turn around again. Then I'm going to be stitching it downwards, just as you can see. I ensure that the pleat is meeting with the chalk parts at the other inner angle. Then I continue with my stitch. So it's going to be holding down the edge of the pleat as well. So I continue stitching all the way to where I started my stitching from. So that will be the end of this first angle. So I'm going to simply repeat the same process for the others, and I'll just leave you to watch it because it's very easy and it's self-explanatory. So enjoy. So it is important to also know that to get a good result, you have to iron a fusible interface or a soft gum stay at the wrong side of this fabric. So the gum stay is just to cover the part where the design is going to be on the inner part. So it's going to give stability to the fabric, so the design is not going to stress out the fabric. So you are going to have a neat look, just as the one I have here.